Welcome to Negotiating Job Offers. My name is Jan Moorman, and I'm a career consultant at Career Management Partners. And we're going to be talking today about improving the offer that you get through negotiation techniques. And please feel free to take notes during this webinar. So congratulations, you have an offer. That's exactly what you've been hoping for since beginning your job search. And you might think it's the end, but really it's just the beginning. Let's take a look at what you're going to be learning today. The objectives of the session today are going to be to research and understand market realities and your market value, to delay and defer salary discussion until you receive an offer, to learn how to, what to, and when to negotiate, and to create win-win scenarios. So I have a question for you. Have you ever negotiated for a salary increase? If so, were you successful? Many of you may never have negotiated for a job offer or a salary increase. So this is exactly where you need to be today, is learning how to do this better and to do this at all. Some may have tried and not done it very well. So whether you have a little or a lot of experience, this session is going to be helpful for you. So let's begin with first things first. When do you begin to negotiate? Well, believe it or not, negotiation actually begins at the interview. You're going to be setting the stage during the interview to start building your value. And you'll build it throughout the initial interview or screening interview and throughout the entire interviewing process. You need to establish the mindset that everyone can negotiate. And in fact, companies expect you to. Ask yourself the question, do I know the fair market value of my role in my area? This involves doing your research and knowing the market value of this position. Until you know the market value, you really don't have all the information you're going to need to present a full and compelling case for an increase in your salary and in your compensation package. Let's take a closer look at this. Salary.com is a wonderful site to go to find out about salary ranges for the kind of position you are applying for and interviewing for. And it's going to give you information from the human resources perspective. So human resources managers have actually given information onto the site, salary.com, and you're going to get their perspective on what typical salary ranges are, low, medium, and high for your kind of position. Payscale.com gives information from the employee perspective and can be a very valuable source to find out what other employees have been paid and can expect to be paid at that particular company. Glassdoor.com gives individual company perspectives, and if you've ever been to Glassdoor, you can read about what employees, current and former employees, say about a company. They can also talk about salaries, they can talk about company culture, and they can provide you with a wide spectrum of information about an employee's opinion about working at a particular company. So that can be a very valuable site. Don't forget to also research the marketplace by networking with industry contacts. You may have professional contacts that you can network with, and you're not going to ask them their salary, but you can ask them what a typical salary range might be for a position such as yours. So don't forget your professional contacts and people that you've worked with before and may be sitting at the very companies that you'd like to get hired onto. Reviewing ads to uncover salary ranges can also be helpful. Now, not all ads actually list salary information, but some of them do. So you can get a sense of salary ranges by reviewing ads. Don't forget to contact recruiters and professional associations. You know, headhunters, professional recruiters are in the business of knowing about available positions, and they can often be a good source of information about salaries, and so can professional associations. So reach out to your professional group, not only for networking, but also for this kind of research on salary and benefit information. And finally, local libraries. You all, this is a way overlooked resource that can provide a lot of wage and salary survey information. And if you befriend a local librarian, they can become your best friend. They can actually email you information about companies, email you information about wages and salaries, so they can be an invaluable resource. And they also tend to be a little bit lonely, so they'll be excited to talk to you about your search. Oh, and in fact, at the downtown Dallas Library, there's actually a whole section of books and reference materials on career search. So I would go to your local library and find out where their career search or career resources are, and let the librarian know what you're looking for, and they can provide you with really a library tour of all the essential information that could be helpful to you. You know, an example of this is to think about using Blue Book to sell your car or to find the value of a car. We use Blue Book all the time to check out what our car is worth and what the market value is. Well, the same thing goes for these kinds of resources. It allows us to know what we are worth or our position is worth in the marketplace. Another aspect of negotiation begins with the interview is to determine your worth. I'm only worth what the marketplace is willing to pay you today. Remember that. You're only worth what the marketplace is willing to pay you today. Your old salary doesn't matter. It's not how much you want, but it's what the marketplace says is your value. And in terms of your own salary expectations, you need to base them on real information using the sources that we've just spoken about, remembering that information is power. The more information you have about what companies typically pay, the more you're going to be in a power position when it comes to negotiating for what you're worth. You've got to prove your value also to employers. And you can prove your value by talking about your similar experience that you bring to the table, that the position you have is very similar to past experience you've had, also very similar to past accomplishments. In your interview, they may be very interested in some of the accomplishments that you brought to the table. Be sure to remind them of what these accomplishments are, the ones that they seem to be particularly interested in, and also the skills that you bring to the table. So you must determine your worth and prove your value, and be sure to know and demonstrate your unique value. So when to negotiate? If you remember nothing more than this slide, you will have learned an important point. You have nothing to negotiate until you have an offer. I'm going to repeat that. You have nothing to negotiate until you have an offer. Remember that every activity that you've done up until negotiation has been a sales process. It began with assessing your own skills, and strengths and accomplishments. You then put that information into a marketing piece or your resume. That marketing piece, then the resume and your cover letter, help to open doors to get you interviews where you proceeded to sell yourself and sell your skills, noticing that all of that process involved selling yourself and your value to the employer. Now you have an offer. It then becomes the negotiating process. But people often get these two processes mixed up. I talk to my candidates all the time, and before they even have their first interview, start telling me that the salary isn't what they assume will be enough money. And I tell them, you have nothing right now to even consider. You have no offer. Go for the sale. Go for the offer. At the offer, you can always try to negotiate for more money, for flex time, for many other things which we'll be talking about today. But it is way too early to be ruling positions out based on assumptions or even stated salary in an ad when you might be able to convince them to pay you more based on your worth in the negotiating process. So my biggest piece of advice is do not start talking about salary or benefits before you have an offer. And so many people do that. So some negotiating rules. Avoid being the first to give a definitive salary figure, and there's more on that in the next slide. And this goes to the next quote in red. He or she who mentions money first loses. And the reason for that is simple. If you mention money first, one, it can mean that's all you're interested in, and companies are very sensitive to the fact that you're just looking to make a buck or make a quick buck or get paid a lot with good benefits and not as interested in the position or the company. Or two, if you mention money first and it is too high, you can scare them away. They'll think that you want too much and they're going to use that to screen you out. If you mention money and it is lower than what they were willing to pay, you obviously are going to lose because they're probably going to offer you very little more than what you used to make when you could have gotten more if you had just not answered that question. So don't answer the question about salary. Put it off until later, and we'll talk more about that in just a second. Avoid absolute and ultimatums. Yeah, nobody wants to be threatened and feel bullied. So you don't want to give them any kind of ultimatum that if they can't raise the salary, you're not going to be talking with them. That's going to knock you out as well. Learn to talk in ranges, saying things like, based on my research, I see that this kind of position pays in this range. And that kind of statement says that it's not your opinion, but it's based on research on the very sites that we talked about in that earlier slide. And remember, do not negotiate until you have a firm offer. There is nothing to negotiate until then. What do you say if they ask you directly about salary? Well, this is going to happen, and it can be very, very challenging if you answer it directly. It's also challenging because on the online application and the phone interviewing screen, they often will ask you that directly. So let's talk about some ways to answer that. For online applications, check carefully to see if it's a required field. If not, don't answer it. Leave it blank. So when they ask for salary on an online app, leave it blank. If it's a required field, then you might have to put something in it, and you will. Check to see if it will accept a word, such as negotiable or open. See if that works. If not, try using $00, comma 000. They might accept that. And remember, if they see that, they're smart enough to know that you clearly don't want to put your salary down and would prefer to talk about it in person or over the phone. And that's perfectly acceptable to do. And then finally, if it won't accept that, use the mid-range of your research salary range. I have worked with lots of clients through the years, and I have found that the first, second, and third options often work. If it doesn't, though, you can use that mid-range, which gives you some flexibility to negotiate upwards. In initial phone interviews, avoid, defer, and turnaround strategies. Some of you may remember Diana Ross of the Supremes, and Diana Ross used to sing a song, Stop in the Name of Love, and she used to put her hand out in front of herself and put that hand up in that stop sign fashion. That's what I want you to think of mentally, is that you're in a sense going to put the stop sign up in your mind and use statements such as, I'll be happy to discuss salary issues when I know more about the position. So if they ask you questions, again, about your salary, I'll be happy to discuss salary issues when I know more about the position. Can you tell me more about the specific job requirements? That's one statement that you could say. Another is, salary isn't the most important aspect of a job to me. What is most important to me is finding the right position with the right company. And that's why I'm so excited about talking with you today. Let's take a look at the salary expectation script, which is on your slide. If asked, what are your salary expectations or requirements, you could say something like, while salary is important to me, it's not everything I'm looking at. I've done my research and I'm seeing that positions similar to this here in the name your city area are in the XYZ to XYZ range. Is this in your range? So again, while salary is important to me, it's not everything I'm looking at. I've done my research and I'm seeing that positions similar to this here in the, whatever the city area are, in the 50,000 to 65,000 range. Is that in this range? You might be thinking to myself, how in the world am I going to remember these statements? Well, you're not. And that's why you're going to write these statements down and you're going to practice them and rehearse them. And in fact, I recommend putting them on sticky notes and putting them around the walls in whatever room that you tend to have your screening interviews or phone interviews in. And by having them at eye level, you can actually read through them conversationally, and you'll be able to remember these kinds of statements. So rehearse them, practice them, you'll get better and better at them, and these sticky notes can be reminders to you. I promise practice is going to make you very good at this. When is an offer an offer? Well, an offer consists of a specific salary amount, a job title, a start date, and it's in writing. It usually is sent by email or letter. It might even be FedEx to you or overnighted to you. And remember that, congratulations, you got an offer. They want you. And now the power shifts to you. They want you, and you haven't said yes, which is why you are in the supreme power position. I will tell you a quick story here. I was given an offer some years ago to a job, and I was excited about receiving the offer, and I told the hiring manager that. And I also told them that I needed to close out some discussions that I was having with some other companies, and that I would get back with them. And it was actually true in my case. Now, it doesn't actually have to be true in your case. And I had asked them if they would be accommodating of a couple days for me to consider the offer and close out my discussions. And because they clearly wanted me to take the position and was afraid I was going to get away, they called me the next day and asked me if I would accept a signing bonus. Totally unexpected. And by the way, the signing bonus was several $1,000s. I was delighted. I was delighted because I would have accepted their first offer. But again, he or she who mentions money first loses. They were willing to sweeten the pot because I didn't say yes, and they were afraid that I would get away. It's very flattering, but they actually lost out on several $1,000s because I would have accepted at the lower amount. So believe it or not, delaying accepting an offer can actually increase your chances of a counteroffer being accepted or even being offered a signing bonus. It really can happen. So give it a try. So now what do you do when you've been given an offer? Well, your initial response should always be thank you. Employers like to know that you're grateful for the offer and are excited about the position. So say it and show it in your voice with enthusiasm. And they appreciate that, and frankly, they expect that. Never accept an offer on the spot. You can say something like, thank you, and I will need a few days to look it over. So can I get back to you by, and typically asking for 72 hours or 3 days is very expected. It's an average length of time that most people take to read through the benefit package, to talk to their family, to talk to their career coach, and to close out discussions, any other discussions they might be having with other companies or organizations. So again, the average wait is around 72 hours. Execs might actually ask for a week or even 2 weeks at higher level positions. So again, saying something like, thank you, and I will need a few days to look it over. So can I get back to you by Friday? Or whatever day of the week is 3 days out, and again for execs, 1 to 2 days. So asking for time is important. Preparing questions and concerns for the negotiation meeting. You're going to be asking for a negotiating meeting with a decision maker, and hopefully it's with the hiring manager. This is where you have maximum power. They want you, and you haven't accepted. Much like the story I just told you before. That's your maximum power. So you've got to prepare for that negotiating meeting with the hiring manager. And then you want to schedule a meeting with the decision maker. Now let's talk about evaluating your job offer, which includes how does the role offer compare to your ideal role, your ideal salary, and your ideal location. Create an ideal job profile for yourself. I would like to think that you created this ideal job profile earlier in your job hunt. Remember that you get to decide whether this is the right job for you. And if it's not, you might need to pass on this role. And that is completely within your right to do that. We don't want you, I don't want you to accept a job that is not going to pay you what you are worth, that's going to require you to move to a city or a location that's too far away from where you want to be, or it isn't the role that you want. So you really have to think through those important aspects of the offer, and there are also some additional things that you need to consider as well. Compensation. When we think of compensation, we tend to think of just salary. But remember, total compensation is really what we're interested in, which could include salary plus incentives, which could include bonus, commissions, stock, and other things. So remember that it's not just salary, it's other aspects of your total compensation package that you need to get clear as well. Healthcare coverage can absolutely vary from company to company, and you need to read through what the coverage is for yourself and also for your family. This is another reason, frankly, why you need 72 hours at least, because you really do need to have time to read through the benefits package to really understand how it compares with your previous coverage. Don't forget about paid time off, vacation, sick days, personal time off. All of these things are very big factors to many people about accepting an offer. And if you have a lot of seniority, you may have worked your way up to 3 and 4 weeks of vacation. And that vacation time is incredibly important to you and your family. So you need to have a good understanding of what those vacation days and other days are going to include at the company. The 401k retirement fund, most companies now offer it, and some of them offer quite a bit of matching, a percentage of matching funds. So it's important to get that clarified. What is the match going to be for the 401k retirement fund? And is there a fund itself? What about life insurance? What about flex spending around health and child care expenses? And don't forget tuition reimbursement. Many companies offer very generous tuition reimbursement programs where they will actually pay for schooling, college classes, certificates, special training. So be sure to review the total compensation package when evaluating an offer. Remember that every job will have unique factors that influence the salary level. Yeah, every job is different, and every job with every company is really different. So you need to really understand the geographic location, and what about commute time? Maybe it's going to be a shorter commute, which translates into less money on gas spending, less money perhaps on child care because you'll be getting home sooner. Or conversely, it may be a much farther commute, which is going to cost you a lot more money. So you need to kind of consider the commute and location. Also, the company size. Some people will go with a large company, which tends to offer more structured salary packages. Larger companies and corporations offer pretty formalized and structured offers. So there's generally not as much room to negotiate at large companies as there are in nonprofit and small to mid-sized companies who have more flexible packages and programs. So you need to consider company size. Also, benefit packages absolutely can vary among large and small companies, and even frankly among large organizations. You'll often talk to people who work at a company and they'll say, you know, the salary isn't maybe as high as I'd like, but our benefits are so great. So benefits are absolutely something to take a look at. And also incentive plans. There are many, many things that can be included in incentive plans that you need to be aware of. So remembering that every job will have their own unique factors that influence salary. So in terms of evaluating criteria, let's take a look at the position. Have you considered long-term growth potential in this particular position? It might be that this is going to be a wonderful entry-level job that's going to allow you a lot of growth and career progression that you found out about in your interview, or perhaps you found on Glassdoor that they like to promote from within. So that can be an excellent reason to perhaps take less salary knowing that there's going to be future growth. You can also evaluate the offer based on job title, on pay grade and level of responsibility, and degree of responsibility. What will you be in charge of? What is your scope of responsibility? You want to make sure that you understand that. There's going to be a variety of work assignments, and you want to understand what those assignments typically will be. You also want to find out if you're going to be using your own abilities to the fullest. And finally, you want to evaluate whether you're going to have the opportunity to expand your talent, skills, and abilities. I've had certain clients that have gone with select employers because they know that by working with employer X, they're going to be exposed to the best technology and the best people in their field, and they might be willing, again, to flex a little bit around salary or title for that opportunity to work for that industry leader. What about on-the-job training? What about independence? Certainly chemistry with your supervisors, peers, and staff, and I'd like to think that you've been paying close attention to how you interacted with the people that you met, your immediate supervisor, of course, and your staff. And I hope also that you've had an opportunity to go on a company tour so you can actually see the physical location of where you'll be working. All of those things are factors to be evaluated. And finally, your visibility. Will you have good visibility in this organization and the ability to have decision-making opportunities? Let's take a look at work culture next in terms of evaluating the offer. Do you know about the real operating culture of an organization? I'd like to think that you've talked to people who perhaps have worked at that company. Perhaps you Googled the organization and read some articles about their company culture. I'd like to think that you've gone to their website and actually read their company mission and values statement. And then finally, going to some of the online sites that we talked about, which also might give you a glimpse of what that culture of a company is really about. That can absolutely affect your job satisfaction. Try to find out information about the performance appraisal process, again, through some of the methods that we just discussed, or I just discussed. Pay attention to the company's image and reputation. Some companies don't have as strong an image as others, and it may be that this would not be a good step for you in terms of your career growth and progression, and in terms of how it will look on your resume. So consider that. Also consider the company's product line and service. Is it considered an innovative service or product line? All of those things can really affect whether or not it's going to be a good decision to accept an offer, and also the company's potential soundness. Yeah, particularly after coming out of what you've just been through, a company downsizing typically, you want to make sure that the company is strong financially. So it's a good idea to check out their financial statements if they are public. Again, through networking, you might be able to find out about this. Through reading the business section of a newspaper, you can find out about some of the financial issues. But do your homework here. You want to go with a company who is financially strong and solvent. And then finally ask yourself, are you truly excited about this position? And will it add to my skill set and to my resume? If it does, it sounds like it might be a good fit for you. And if it doesn't, you might want to consider passing on this opportunity. Some additional job offer components to consider are around work-life balance. You know, for some of us, work-life balance can be even more important to us than salary. Commuting distance, the office location, our total daily work hours. Be sure to ask that. What is the expectation around hours worked? You might be surprised. Some companies might expect a 10, 11-hour day, and you want to know that going in. What about the opportunity to work flex hours? You know, more and more companies are offering flex hours, and if you're a morning person and would like to beat some of the traffic, it might be your preference to actually go in early and leave early. Some companies also do a 10-hour work day from Monday through Thursday and let people off for Friday, or a good part of Friday. So flex hours can be very important to people. Working from home, opportunities are increasing for that, and that might be something that they've explicitly stated in their ad, or there may be an opportunity to work from home either part-time or even potentially full-time. You can ask about that. Child care resources. You know, a few companies out there actually provide free daycare on site as part of the benefit package, and that might be a real valuable, financially valuable, and just convenience resource for you. Job sharing is something that some companies will do, and you can certainly find out about that. And you also need to find out about required travel. What is the expectation for travel? How often does it come up? And could telecommuting or teleconferencing be a trade-off, perhaps, for some required travel? So you need to consider both the objective and subjective components of a job offer. Now, I want to be honest here. Sometimes we have to get practical, and sometimes you may have to take what I call a bridge job, which is a job that meets many of your components, but it may not meet all of your components. And folks, that is just fine. You've got to pay your rent, pay your mortgage, feed your kids, put clothes on your back. So sometimes we may have to take 70 to 80% of what we're looking for in what I call a bridge job, while you continue looking for that ideal opportunity. There's nothing wrong with that. It is practical, and in fact, it makes perfect sense. So if you need to go back to work, try to find that bridge job that has much of what you're looking for while you continue looking for that perfect next opportunity. So now we need to get very serious about negotiation skills. And now that you've thoroughly reviewed the offer, it's time to develop your negotiating strategies. So how do you go about doing that? Well, you need to plan your approach. You need to identify up to 5 items from the items that we've been discussing so far. You need to identify those 5 items to discuss with the hiring manager. You're going to want to prioritize those items from most important to least important. You want to plan your approach, and you want to create win-wins. So let's take a look at each of these. Prioritizing your negotiable issues. Most people start with salary. It's what tends to be most important for people. So people begin there and they get it firmed up before moving on typically to the next item. Remember that 5 to 10% increase in salary is reasonable range to negotiate, 5 to 10%. Let me tell you that companies expect you to negotiate. And in fact, don't be one of the many people who leave money on the table. We know through talking with HR managers that about 80% of people leave money on the table. They don't counteroffer or negotiate for what they're worth. And know that you can do that. And think about it. The worst that can happen is they can say no. So 5 to 10% is certainly reasonable. Health insurance and benefits, you can also negotiate. Vacation and time off, you can negotiate. Don't forget about tools, cell phone, computer, company car are all things that you can negotiate. And then the relocation package. There's a lot of money in relocation, but typically salary, health insurance, and vacation tend to be the most important to people in terms of ranking their list. Now it's time to plan your approach. You want to adopt a consultative style. And what that means is asking questions. Something like, I see that you offer 2 weeks of vacation. Are there ever exceptions made for mid-career professionals? Or would you be open to 3 weeks vacation based on my previous vacation time at my previous employer? So again, you could say something like, I see you offer the standard 2 weeks of vacation. Are there ever exceptions made for mid-career professionals? Would you be open to, and then ask your question. So that's a consultative style. Don't be too direct and don't be demanding. Well, you're clearly not paying what I used to make, so there's no point in wasting our time. Don't be demanding. It's going to turn off the employer, and that's going to shut down any possibility of movement in your offer. Suggest options. Would it be possible to have a salary review or a career development review at the 6-month mark where you could review my work up to that point and see if perhaps a salary increase might be an option based on my good performance? Another one is asking for consideration. And what I just stated was an example of that. Have you considered using a flex time schedule for this kind of position? And then give a rationale for your request. If I have the opportunity to work at home, it actually is going to allow me to do my work in a more focused way, and I won't be interrupted by as many phone calls and meetings. So if you can give a rationale for your request, a business rationale, oftentimes that will go a long way toward changing their minds and giving you what you want. Remembering to avoid absolutes and ultimatums. A more effective approach is to express thanks for the offer, reaffirm your fundamental interest, highlight your concerns, and ask questions. So let's take a look at a good example of this. First, I want to say thank you for extending me this offer. I'm excited about the opportunity to become part of the team and contributing to XYZ's company's continued success. However, I have one or two concerns. The salary isn't where I had thought it would be, and I'm hoping you can help me with that. So again, expressing thanks, showing your enthusiasm, talking about how you want to contribute to their success, and being open about discussing one or two concerns. And then finally, asking for their help. A very consultative and polite way to begin negotiation. Remember, after you say that statement, pause or wait for a response. Pausing can be your best weapon in a negotiation. The pause puts the burden of talking on the listener. So you've just spoken, and now you're pausing, and now it's their turn to respond to what you said. Pause and wait can be an excellent strategy. This next example is from a book . And the book's title is How to Make $1,000 a Minute by Jack Chapman. It is excellent, and I strongly encourage you all to take a look at it. It has many sample scripts in the book, and he talks a lot about using pausing, echoing, and you can get a lot of ideas about really what to say during your negotiation by reading his book. So I strongly recommend it. So let's take a look at this sample script. If the offer is less than what you expected, repeat, echo the offer back, remembering that she or he who speaks first loses. So it might go something like, 60,000. Echoing or repeating it back, 60,000. Now they have to respond to what you just put out there. Another approach is to request, don't demand. The salary of 60,000 is somewhat lower than what I expected. Is there any flexibility in this initial salary offer? So you're being truthful that 60,000 isn't what you were looking for, and you're just asking if there's a possibility for flexibility in the offer. You're not demanding it, but you're just asking. Remember, companies want to make you happy. They want to make you feel like they respect you and are giving you something of value, and they want you to be happy. If you make them feel like you are disgusted by the offer or it is absolutely kind of hold your nose kind of an offer, then they're going to be offended. So you want to be as positive in stating this kind of response as possible and just ask for flexibility. And you'll be surprised at what they say. Another thing that Chapman talks about in his book is to trade no for yes. And it sounds like, if I accept this salary offer, which is lower than what my research indicates, then will you consider, and you're going to insert the next item on your priorities list. So you can see here that maybe they weren't willing to budge on salary, and that's okay. But they may be willing to offer you an extra week of vacation, a third week of vacation. Maybe they'll be willing to offer you a sign-on bonus. It could be an opportunity to work virtually, and maybe even a higher grade level based on your interviewing. So trading no for yes can be an excellent idea to go through your list of your top 5 priorities. So let's recap some of the key points we've learned today. 10 key principles of negotiating. 1, everyone can learn to negotiate effectively. No one is born with this skill, but it can be learned, it can be improved, and it can be mastered. And it gives you such a great feeling when you're able to accomplish this. Again, you're learning this for this particular job search, but you're going to need this skill at your next search and maybe even to ask for a raise. So these are skills that you can continue to use in your career. Secondly, you wouldn't be receiving the offer if you weren't the person selected as the best candidate for the job. This again puts you in a power position. They don't want to keep looking. They want you. And they would like to make you happy if at all possible. So know that going in, and that's going to give you a feeling of confidence. Number 3, the first offer is usually not the best offer. There's always more on the table. And folks, don't be the people that leave money on the table. You'll never have a better time to raise your salary, to broaden your job title or responsibilities than now. So take advantage of this opportunity. If you don't ask, you don't get. It's just that simple. You want to create a win-win scenario. You win by getting the salary that you want and deserve and are worth, and they win by getting an excellent employee who's going to immediately hit the ground running and produce results. That's the win-win scenario that they're looking for and that you're looking for. Never accept an offer on the spot. Never. No matter how excited you are, wait, ask for time, certainly thank them for the offer, ask for time to review the offer. 72 hours is usually minimal, but you actually may go up to a week or 2 weeks to finish talking to other companies that may have continuing discussions in mind with you and that you need to get back to find out if they have offers for you. So ask for that important time to review the offer completely. Remember that a 5 to 10% increase is the professional standard for most counteroffers. Trade a no for a yes can be an excellent idea and strategy, and always get the offer in writing. You want to make sure that you ask for it in writing. Typically, they will send it by email. They might even FedEx it to you, but that really makes it an official offer and something that you can respond to. There's a great deal of truth in the old adage, we rarely get what we deserve, we get what we negotiate for. I want you to know that there are some additional resources to keep in mind when preparing for your negotiation with a company. Your CMP consultant is always there to role play with you or to help you think through and evaluate an offer and negotiating strategy. Don't forget our career workspace portal. We have salary information in our portal as well as other webinars that can be helpful to you. Related webinars are going to be interviewing and following up after the interview. These two I would recommend taking in conjunction with this one. Books, again, How to Make $1,000 a Minute by Jack Chapman. It's an excellent book, and there are many other books that are very good on the subject. I encourage you to get to reading some of these other resources. And then finally, research salary negotiation online, and you will find an amazing amount of information online that will add to the discussion we've had today. I want to thank you so much for attending this webinar today and wish you all the best in negotiating your next offer. Thanks so much.